So, hey, I'm pleased to be joined by Gina Ciganik, CEO of Habitable and a longtime affordable housing developer in the Twin Cities. Gina, how you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to chat with you a little bit about your role with Habitable and kind of the mission of your organization there, as well as a new report that just came out that you guys released. But I wonder if we could start out by if you could just maybe introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your previous role in affordable housing. You were with Aon for a number of years, and tell us about that and kind of how you got started in this business.
Yeah, good question. So yeah, Gina Ciganik. I got started in this business way back. Gosh, quite over 2 decades ago. Spent the bulk of my career as an affordable housing developer here in the Twin Cities with Aon. I led the development or redevelopment of a couple thousand units of affordable housing, mixed income, and all kinds of housing. And as much as it was important to me thinking about the social justice part of the work, helping people for whichever reason lacked a stable, healthy place to live, I started to recognize that every development we did, we were digging big holes in the ground, we were cutting trees down, we were trying to make it more, buildings more energy efficient. And so I started to go down a sustainability track and started to really think about, healthy housing, not only just for the occupants living in the building, which is of course important, but an overall impact in the world. What was happening with the energy we used, and what, if we could plant more trees on the site, all kinds of things like that. And it wasn't until I left Aon about 9 years ago now. It was after my last project at the corner of Portland and Franklin. At the time, it was called The Rose. We were reaching new heights in sustainability. And I stumbled upon a new green building standard called the Living Building Challenge. I had done LEED, I'd done Passive House, I'd done Enterprise, I'd done a lot of different building. I started to recognize that many of the materials that I was using, I had no idea what they were made of, where they came from, what kinds of impacts they had to people and the planet. And so I went down this journey of really exploring, yeah, really getting beyond the energy efficiency and water efficiency things we were doing to what were these products we were using. And it was shocking to me at the time how little we knew, how little we could find out. And if you did get information from a manufacturer, it was all chemistry. I'm not a chemist, so I didn't know what that meant, or how that would impact me or the planet or the fish or the, other kinds of the atmosphere. So that's where I started my journey in this whole material health space.
And so that brings us to your role with Habitable. Can you tell me a little bit about the background and the mission of your organization and sort of what you talked a little bit about how you became interested in it, but tell us a little bit more about the history of Habitable as formerly the Healthy Building Network.
Correct. The Healthy Building Network. I stumbled upon them when I was at Aon and doing the Living Building Challenge at the Rose, because I was trying to find out information about products. And so this is a group that formed in 2000. Our mission, which has been recently updated now that we had the rebranding from Healthy Building Network to Habitable. Our mission is that all people and the planet thrive when the materials economy is in balance with Earth's systems. And so, as I mentioned, when I was building my projects, I was worried about that 50,000 square feet or 100,000 square feet. And what I didn't realize is the work I was doing was one part of an entire chunk of the materials economy. And I didn't think of my work rolling up to the point of, the prediction is 2.5 trillion square feet of real estate is going to be added to the earth by 2060. So all these products add up to a big, big number. And so that gives us the opportunity to make change. And so how I stumbled across a Healthy Building Network was they were doing this work. They were looking at green chemistry. They were working on research around building materials we were purchasing, not knowing that there's a place called Cancer Alley in the United States, in Louisiana, where a lot of these products, SPF insulation, the foam spray insulation that many of us use, and the vinyl floor. I didn't realize the impact it was having on people of color, low-income populations, and children who live in these zones. Healthy Building Network did. So I started to learn about their work a little bit more. And just as the rose was wrapping up and we were successfully picking better products within our budget and within performance, some of the funders of philanthropy who was funding me to do this work said, hey, we're going to fund this organization to bring this national scale. We don't want it to just stay at the corner of Portland and Franklin. And so they bugged me about jumping ship. And at first I thought, no, I'm a developer. I don't know anything about chemistry. I want somebody else to figure all of that out. And then after a time, I thought, all right, I'll do this because I think it's important. And then I'll come back to being a developer. So my role was really, and still continues to be, about translation. How do you translate the complex chemistry into actionable guidance that the people, the architects, the developers, the, finance folks who don't speak that language, that they can understand and make really good decisions. And so, yeah, in no time I became the CEO because the former CEO, Bill Walsh, the founder, appreciated this idea of getting science actionable and translated. Because you can have lots of 50-page carpet reports that not many people are actually going to read. One or two bullet points, and you can make it actionable for the intended user, then you can make change. So I've really been a translator with Habitable, working across the country, even across the globe, from groups as big as Google and Harvard and some of the biggest global architectural firms to Home Depot and affordable housers and environmental justice groups. So we sort of work with the gamut of people who are trying to improve health and equity and the environment through the selections of better building products.
Great. And so you mentioned a report. Let's talk about the new report that you just released. It sounds like it really sheds some light on material choices and how they impact human health and the environment. So can you talk a little bit about that and just highlight some of the takeaways from the report?
Yeah, we conducted a research on 36 affordable housing projects here in Minnesota. Worked with the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency to look at that data. We picked 5 product categories that many folks are interested, like flooring, countertops, insulation, et cetera, and looked at what were the most common products used across those 36 projects. It was represented about 2,100 units and about 2 million square feet. So it was a good size sample to represent the kind of the typical products. And what we found was about 70% of all the products use were sort of the worst in class, if you call them, the most toxic, the most polluting products. And about 15% were better, on the better range, and about another 15%, the specs weren't clear enough for us to really understand what product was being specified. But my guess is it would be prorated to about that same, 70%, et cetera. It wasn't a surprise, because I know what we're all using. I used it too. Vinyl floors, luxury vinyl floors, PLAM countertops, SPF insulation, a lot of the typical products that are sold very, quote unquote, cheaply on the market as their first cost. And that's what is offered in the system. So I like to say that this isn't a Minnesota problem or an affordable housing problem. We see these same products used ubiquitously across all typologies. If it's healthcare, K-12, childcare, office, what products are the big sellers. So the reason why we chose Minnesota, it's my backyard. I know who lives here. These are all my friends. I just believe they have the chops to figure out a way out of this, to find better options. We work with groups all the time, locally and nationally, and sometimes even globally, who are figuring out how to do this with the right information. And I'm excited to, take this kind of bad news and turn it into leadership and reshape the system we live in and operate in, so that we can use our buying power and our volume of products we're all purchasing to buy healthier things.
So is this primarily cost driven when you talk about the use of some of these less than desirable products, I guess? I guess that's the first part of my question. And then the second part is, that it seems to me the challenge is then, will you be driving up costs of your projects if you go to more sustainable materials?
Yeah, excellent question. Because first of all, I want to acknowledge, as a former affordable housing developer and still being very connected to that crew, those extra costs are problematic. Post COVID and, the supply chain issues, costs are already out of hand. So we're approaching this as, how do we do this in a way that makes sense and acknowledges a lot of the other pressures. So this isn't about adding pressures. This is about trying to figure out a way that works within the realm of the constraints we're all under. Cost and performance is always the first question. And I would say performance is this, same thing as cost, because if it fails, you have to replace it and there's a cost there. So the reality is that there are many products you can choose that actually don't have a cost premium. You just have to know what to ask for. The second part of cost is sometimes there is a slight premium, but if you buy in bulk, like if you can work with your general contractor, or Minnesota can come together and start buying in bulk rather than just one developer on one project, that can mitigate costs. So there's some strategies around that. And so there's many ways people are confronting where there's a cost premium. And that tends to be if you can drive the market and grow the use of better products, the price tends to come down then. I mean, that's just how the market actually works. So we can use our buying power that way. And I always say the third thing about costs is a lot of costs are left out of the math. So vinyl people always say, well, that's cheap. That's why we use that. Well, cheap for whom? Maybe the first cost. But what I didn't know is that is one product that is plastic, vinyl, polyvinyl chloride. It's made, from fossil fuels that are then turned into petrochemicals that are then transported across the country somehow and end up in a train wreck in Ohio, if you remember the East Palestine train
Mhm.
crash and the vinyl chloride. Now people are living, both from where it was manufactured and in the train derailments and other spills, people are living with those toxic exposures in their soils. It's impacted their housing costs. Taxpayers are paying billions of dollars to clean up these things when they spill. And then the quality of life and the health impact. So when we do research in these areas called fence line zones, I never knew that term until this work. There where neighborhoods that abut these manufacturing facilities where people are working and breathing in the air and interacting tend to be people of color, low-income populations, and children. And so
Mhm.
those proportionate exposures to this cheap product have huge consequences and costs. So
Mhm.
I talk about and think about these costs differently now.
Mhm.
And a good relatable way some people understand it is, this shirt I'm wearing, I must have bought it because I thought it was cute, right? But and I could afford it, so that worked. And
Mhm.
if someone told me it was made in a country where children were worked on it for 15 hours a day for 10 cents payment, it wouldn't be that cute.
Mhm.
It's a different cost. So part of this is a mindset of sort of shifting this idea of what we include in costs and
Mhm.
who's exposed. Many times we think about exposures to the occupant living in that unit or working in that office, but we have to start thinking about this broader spectrum from extraction all the way to the end.
Mhm.
And one of the things we highlight, if we're using all these plastic products, many of the orange and the red products, we have this ranking from red to green. We call this tool informed. We've created a really simple way to look at these products through a lens of red to green. Many of
Mhm.
these red and orange products are made from fossil fuels. So we're electrifying our buildings, stopping the fossil fuel there, only to build them out of products that are made from that very same problem. So that fossil fuel issue. So it's a toxic problem, it's a climate problem, it's a reliance on fossil fuel. So if we don't look holistically at these things, we're going to wake up in, 10 years from now and think, hey, I thought we were going for this 1.5 degrees and we've electrified our buildings and cars. Why is there still a problem?
Mhm.
Oh, because all these products, like it didn't, again, not a chemist, and maybe this is admitting me not thinking very much, but in the day, I didn't think about latex paint as plastic. I didn't think of nylon carpet as plastic. I didn't think about a lot of these things having a lot of plastic in them, um, having these different names. And so if we're going to combat climate and those costs, and the cost of our health and the cost of in the environment, that is the other cost we have to include.
Yeah, yeah, interesting perspective. It looks like you're working with the University of Minnesota's Center for Sustainable Design. Am I saying that right?
Center for
Um,
Sustainable Building Research. Yeah, Richard.
Building research. Yeah,
Yep.
thank you for that. Tell me a little bit more about that and kind of the role they're playing as you roll out some of these recommendations from the report and so on.
Yeah, the way we work, as much as I'm local here to Minnesota, and four of our other staff, our chief research officer, our COO, and several of our researchers are here. It is really important to me that we have local voices and local leaders leading this. And
Mhm.
so Habitable works more, we have staff across the country, and so we're not seen as a local organization, even though we have folks living here. And so to me, it's always important to have local leaders driving the conversation and really thinking about it. So they're, a great group we've partnered with for a long time. And even when I was at Aon, I partner with them.
Mhm.
Safer products are important to them too. They lead the development of our B3 building codes that state buildings have to adhere to. So as they're looking at ways to both decarbonize, the building, the building sector, they're looking to detoxify it too, to bring these things together. And that's a lot of our work. We do decarb and detox. And so bringing these things together, that's important for the University of Minnesota. So they'll be part of this work. This report is explaining what the current state is. And over the course of the summer and into the fall, we're going to be designing with many local leaders this roadmap out of red, this idea that we are using a lot of red products. And so they're going to be part of the key partner on that work. And we have some demonstration projects. So LHB architect, engineers are doing some demonstrations, and Beacon, Interfaith Housing. And so we will be working with a host of local partners to really think about what makes sense for Minnesota and how can we use our innovation. And it's not just affordable housing. So we're going to have other partners in this too, all throughout the built environment. And we are going to lead what I believe is the country on how to do this well.
And how have I assume you were working with builders and developers and architects and so on. What kind of reaction have you had from the folks you've worked with on these issues? They seem to be receptive to your recommendations.
Yeah, they really, well, they have the first reaction that I had when I was a developer, like, what in the heck? Isn't somebody regulating this? Why? Why should I be able to buy something that is so, toxic and creating these diseases and these spills? So after this first moment of how is this possible? How did I not know this? Why isn't this being regulated? Then there's this moment of sort of reckoning that, ooh, we're using a lot of products that aren't so good, and we don't want to be a part of perpetuating these harms. We don't want to be investing and, be investors in these worst products. And then there's this moment of, well, how do we make that change? And so the informed tools, what we call inform, this red to green guidance, was created with architects and developers and folks. So it tends to be something that is highly usable because their peers and some folks here, MSR Design and others, have helped create it. And then they want to roll their sleeves up. Because once you learn these things, there's very few people who say, nah, I don't, I'm too busy. I don't feel like making change. So there's just this question of where do you start? And we usually say, pick one product area, see where you can step up from red. That's sort of our motto. If you can step up from red, lean towards products that are yellow and green. If the built environment moves to products that are yellow and green, and hopefully in the future, even better products like hempcrete and things that aren't quite getting on the market yet, we will literally change the health of the planet. I mean, literally, supply chains, the biodiversity loss, we have a real shot at this just because the built environment is so big. And so there's this, it goes from what, had no idea, to, oh God, I don't want another problem to solve, to this next, well, there's probably something I can do, because I don't really want to be buying products made in Cancer Alley. I always said, boy, if that sticker was on my job site, some stuff came up and said made in Cancer Alley, I'd say, I don't want that. I don't want that as part of this project.
Sure.
So yeah, we do have folks that are definitely interested, a little shocked at the current state of things, especially people are reacting to the environmental injustices, the inequities, that who is being harmed, disproportionately harmed. They don't want to disproportionately harm populations, Black and brown communities, and low income and children. Most people would not want to be a part of that. So yeah, it's a matter of reckoning and then figuring out where do we start and how do we lean on each other and do this together? Because maybe if you'll try this product that I've never tried before. Maybe we'll try it in our community room or 1 or 2 apartments and see how it goes. And if it works for you, then maybe I'll buy it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ways we can do this together, and that's what people are excited about.
Yeah, and I would think you'd have a friendly audience with the architects and so on. I would think the trick is selling it to the owners, especially the more of the for-profit ones who are counting every penny. And I guess that's probably true of all developers. But do you think maybe the state could play a role in this? And I don't know if this is already the kind of thing that's addressed in B3, or I think LEED talks about building materials and the importance of choosing wisely there. But what are your thoughts on how to move the needle on this, and maybe the role that the public sector could play in this?
Yeah, there should definitely be a first step of learning.
Mm-hmm.
So in the report, we highlight leaders already making change to show that people are figuring this out regardless of questions about cost, performance, all the myriad things, complexity. So that's already working. And one of the ways public funders and officials can step to take the first step is to provide education. So the New York Housing Preservation Development Department, any affordable housers that get funded through that program, or anyone who gets funded through that program has to go through some training. There's no regulation, not saying you have to step up, you can use it, you can't use it. It doesn't get into those kinds of things, but it wants
Mm-hmm.
everybody to learn, because action comes from knowledge. Knowledge is
Mm-hmm.
power. And so that is one way, is making sure that anyone that gets the funding gets links to information that's helpful. And so
Mm-hmm.
this education part is a great place to start. Green building standards. Habitable for many, many years is a key advisor to all of them. And so we have helped many of them shape the way they address materials. We have found over the course of, the last 10 years or so, it's gotten really complicated. It's built around this certification, that certification, this chemical list, that it's too complex, and many developers are saying not interested in that. Or sometimes the certifications are just certifying something very narrow and not looking at the whole. So we've found that that's why we're not making large scale progress, is the way it's working is too complex. So we've been working with many of them, like including Well has already adopted and formed on the front end. We think of more of it like materials modeling, because it looks at types of products. You
Mm-hmm.
most can't find detailed information from each manufacturer. Very few. It's small percentage of products that actually have some information on it. So we take this approach that's easier, science-based, but it's based on types. Kind of like when you go to the grocery store. We all learned in kindergarten on our food pyramid, we knew where candy ranked. No one could, no one reads the label. We knew these are the worst kinds of foods. We knew spinach, whether we liked it or not, and broccoli, or apples and oranges. We know where those rank. We don't have to compare this apple to that apple. We knew in the cereal aisle, Fruit Loops, we
Mm-hmm.
wanted those, but mom wouldn't let us get that. The granola with the raisins is better. So we're taking this different approach because we see the other stuff not working. It didn't work for me. I wasn't a chemist. I couldn't figure out if an alkyl phenol ethoxylate was in that paint. I don't know. Um, to do like we do at the grocery store. We now know to shop the perimeter. These foods are materially better than those. We can do that in the built environment as well. So that's one of the frameworks we're presenting with Informed, is when we all go to Home Depot or start to order, or make selections on different products, we don't know kind of what the quote unquote candy aisle of products are. Now we do. They're product
Mm-hmm.
types in the red. So if
Mm-hmm.
we start adopting this idea of let's all step up from red, orange is slightly better than. If you get to yellow, you're doing super good. Doesn't even have to get all the way to green. You're doing it remarkably better if you
Mm-hmm.
get there. So
Yeah.
that's what we're changing. So when we're thinking about systems, we do need the public groups involved for building awareness. Hopefully, as the green building standard starts to change and adopt this, that helps. We're
Mhm.
working with Autodesk right now, the Revit tool. Many of the architects use to be able to bring this data in. We're doing a proof of concept so that as architects are working there, they can start to toggle through. You can see one of the visuals in the report showing a kitchen with an overlay of reds and yellows and different things that we can start integrating our data into tools like that to make it really easy and accessible. So
Hmm.
there's roles for everybody to play. And yeah, in the past, the funders, the banks, the tax credit syndicators, kind of relied on the architects and developers to figure that out. Again, most weren't aware of this wasn't even a problem. But now
Mhm.
they got to think about themselves as what are they investing in? If they're investing in projects that are fundamentally red and orange, we've made it now visible of what that means. You've committed to investing and perpetuating these systemic problems.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not going to change overnight, but working together, we can start moving the ship,
Mhm.
starting to turn this thing. And I know Minnesota and I know the funders here. I know these folks will figure it out.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, fascinating conversation. Great work on that, Gina. Any other quick parting thoughts before I let you go?
Yeah, check our website out at Habitable. Habitablefuture.org is our website. Look at Informed, that tool. We're going to be having several meetings and engaging with people over the
Mhm.
summer, starting on June 4th. The University of Minnesota and us and some other local partners are going to be starting this conversation. So I can send you that information if you want to make that. But get involved. Get involved. We need you.
Great. Well, I hope we can continue this conversation and stay in touch. And thanks so much for joining me, Gina. Great work.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks, Brian.
Bye.